So I think we've got a good critical mass. Welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us for another one of these series. We've been doing these calls on behalf of the Sullivan Foundation for starting on Wednesday, and we're doing them twice a week for the foreseeable future, and exploring this conversation around how do you navigate the unknown, right? So there's a lot of uncertainty in the air at the moment, and so how do we navigate that? And we wanted to invite some of our favorite social entrepreneurs and change makers across the Sullivan Network just to give us a little glimpse of what their life currently looks like, how they're responding to this, how it's impacting some of the work that they're doing and the communities that they're a part of. And we wanted to make this really interactive. So a little bit of framing of how this call is going to go. We'll give both Ajax and Tessa, who are the two that we have joining us today, a chance to share a little overview of what they're working on, what they're up to in the world. And then we will go into some breakout conversations. So we want to give everybody a chance to actually chat with other folks across the Sullivan Foundation Network. And so we'll do that for a few minutes, letting you pair up in some small groups to talk. And then we'll come back from those small groups and do a bit of a Q&A with Tessa and Ajax. So whatever questions you guys have, that's the opportunity to kind of share that with them, and we'll have a bit of a conversation back and forth. So that is our intention. Hopefully this goes roughly about an hour or so, but this is definitely a time to have your voice heard. So don't feel like you need to passively sit back unless that's what you want to do. This is definitely a chance for you to share the questions and curiosities that you have at the moment. So that's a bit of the hope for today. Let me switch our slides here so we're ready to go. So to kick things off, I would love for Tessa just to maybe share a little bit about who you are, what you're working on in the world, and we'll go from there. And if everybody else wants to just make sure you're muted during this time, that would just help for quality of the call. So.
Thank you, Spud. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. I'm really grateful to be here, especially with Ajax. She's amazing, so I'm excited to hear what she's up to. As Spud said, my name is Tessa. I am the founder and executive director of an education nonprofit called Asset. We train and equip teachers with a curriculum of concrete social and emotional tools designed to help students reduce anxiety and build resilience. I founded Asset because I grew up with severe anxiety in the classroom, and whenever I would go to my teacher or my guidance counselor for help, they'd hand me a stress ball, and it would really piss me off because it wasn't an effective coping mechanism. I really wanted to learn a preventative tool that I could use to mitigate my anxiety. And it was when I got a full scholarship to a private high school that I learned mindfulness and positive psychology as part of my academic day. And it completely changed the trajectory of my life because I went from being a kid who was so anxious throughout the school day to a kid who loved going to school. And so when I got to college, I asked the question, how do we equip all teachers with these tools? Because I realized it was an equity issue. I was really blessed to get a full scholarship to a private school, but not all the students have that opportunity. So Asset really stemmed from that question. Today, we serve about 12,000 students each week across 7 states. And how this time has really affected us is our distribution channel has pretty much gone online. And we're so used to giving teachers curriculum and tools to deliver to the students that we're kind of have to change the distribution channel now, where we've had to think about, okay, how do we get our tools directly to students? Because we're so used to going through teachers, but that's not a channel anymore. So next week, we're actually going to launch an Instagram campaign and have students lead different mindfulness and positive psychology tools on our Instagram, and we're going to post a new video each day. So that's how we've had to change during this time of uncertainty, is saying, okay, if our distribution channel is no longer in a traditional practice, how do we deploy what we know is needed directly to the people we serve? I hope that's what you were looking for, Spud.
Yeah, that's perfect. Cool. A little teaser, so hopefully you have a little better idea of what Tessa's up to in the world. Ajax, do you want to make sure you're unmuted and share a little bit of what you got going on down at Magnolia?
Yes. Hi, everyone. I see some of my loyal friends and followers, Jess and Ruben. Hi, guys. Thank you, Tessa. I think we share the same sentiments about each other. 12,000 kids weekly, amazing. Spud, thank you so much for this opportunity to connect to people. So Magnolia Yoga Studio, first Black-owned yoga studio in New Orleans. We've been open for almost 4 years, and we have been serving New Orleans and all her visitors 7 days a week. Our business model is based on diversity, inclusivity, and affordability, and it's been working really well. And we've been able to build a community from the ground up that is really committed to their health and wellness, and doing it in a communal setting, meeting people that are on that journey with them, from all ages, all sizes, all backgrounds. I'm really proud of our community, and I miss them so much. And so since this has happened, you know, we have a decent online presence on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. And because of that, I just kind of seamlessly went from, you know, teaching classes in a physical yoga studio to then converting it into a virtual yoga studio on Instagram. And so we've been offering, last week we offered up to 3 classes a day on Instagram. And then we kind of scaled back a little bit this week and just offered 1 class a day on Instagram live. And it's been remarkable, you know, and we've been servicing people all over the country, all over the world. The live video is available 24 hours later. So if you can't catch me right at noon, you can catch it within 24 hours. And it's really giving people a lot of peace of mind, helping people stay connected, helping people stay healthy, helping people keep a routine. I invite elders to be a part of it. They can do yoga in a chair with us. I invite their children to be a part of it and make it a family affair. And a lot of people are. And so I've been getting a lot of emails and text messages and phone calls of people really benefiting tremendously from our services online. So one of the things that we're doing now is, because as some of you may know, New Orleans has some of the highest rates in the world per capita, if not the highest, and it's probably because of Mardi Gras. And so although maybe there's talk of certain parts of the nation kind of opening up, I don't think Louisiana will be one of those areas. And so what I've been doing this week is researching how do we pretty much on a semi-permanent basis transfer my entire business online. And it feels like I'm starting a new business. It's not exactly true, but it does feel that way. So moments of being overwhelmed, reminding myself to just take it one step at a time. But it's also opened up a lot of great new opportunities and being able to serve people that are not physically here in New Orleans. So that's really motivating me and exciting me. And that's it. You know, I've been having to do a lot of soul searching myself. I've been having to do a lot of grounding. I've been having to figure out what are the spiritual opportunities here for me, for my community, and for the world. And when I drop down to the spiritual level, to the deepest level, I really get excited because there's a lot that we can do that needs to be done. So I'm happy to share some of that with you all, hear from all of you, and I'm just really grateful for this opportunity.
Cool. Well, thank you for sharing, giving us a bit of a frame of where you guys are coming from. I wanted to build off that a little bit. You were talking about almost the role that you play in the communities versus the personal dimension to this. So I'd love to break folks into small breakout groups of 3 to 4 people and explore the question of how has COVID-19 impacted your personal health and well-being? So really take this thing to the personal level. It's obviously hitting people in lots of different ways. So we'll break everybody out. Some of you will have a chance to be with Ajax. Some of you will have a chance to be with Tessa. And in that time, we'll take about 10 minutes or so. I'll give you a heads up when we're going to bring people back. Just be thinking about what bigger questions are starting to spin in your head that you want to ask to both of them when we come back to the full group. So cool. So as those questions are coming to mind, feel free to just keep adding them into this chat box. We'll use this as a bit of a reference point. To kind of kick things off, I'll send out the first question, but then if other folks have curiosities or you want to piggyback on top of a discussion, feel free to unmute yourself and jump in on the call. But the piece that I'm curious about is Tessa and Ajax, you both shared in the beginning that when you got the news of, right, schools are shutting down or I won't be able to open my yoga studio, you had to do a big pivot. And I'm curious personally, like if you could bring us to the moment when you realized you were going to have to make that big pivot, what were you thinking? What were you processing? Where were you? Were you in a panic mode? Were you in a calm mode? Can you just share a little bit of what that moment and that experience was like for you when you realized you were going to have to make a really significant pivot with your organization?
I can go. So we had my teammate Gina and I were leading a webinar for parents on just different mindfulness tools they could do with their children while they were home. At the time, we didn't really have a true sense of how long schools would be closed for, but we knew kids would be home for a couple weeks, so that was our intention. And at the end of and someone who had joined the call was the senior vice president of Teach for America. And at the end of it, she asked Gina and I if we could stay on the phone longer and chat with her. And it was on that call, then we had this moment of like, oh, like this is a much bigger deal than we anticipate. And like, we have to plan for schools not going back, like kids not going back to school. And it was actually, I think what was really awesome about that moment is Michelle Culver, who's the senior vice president, she was so excited about the opportunity. Like she was so excited for us about this time of change and how we could get tools directly to students that there was a lot less anxiety of like, oh my gosh, how are we going to do this? But because she had this attitude of opportunity, I think it was really helpful for Gina and I to be like, oh, we can totally do this. We have this like amazing woman support who's such a leader in the education community. And if she believes we can do it, like we totally can. So riding that momentum really helped. And then like the next day we had a phone call with just 2 students. We're like, hey, if we do this, how would you do it? What do you think? And the students were really excited. And we've just had a phenomenal response from students who are saying, yes, you need to deploy your tools directly to us. And yes, Instagram is like the right channel to do that. And we are going to like support you and be like student leaders and join you in that initiative. So I would say in a time where it could be a lot of anxiety because we've been met with so much excitement. And I think that's been, you know, Adrian or Ajax's response too, of like people are excited to like have a new way of delivery. That's been easier to deploy our work. So less anxiety, more excitement, and, you know, positive psychology mindset, I would say.
Great.
Am I muted?
You're good.
No? Oh, okay. It's such a great question, Spud, and I think that it was a private moment. It wasn't a moment like Tessa's where I was interacting with other people. It was a private moment just like 2 days ago where I kind of realized like, oh, okay, I get why this is overwhelming because I'm basically kind of starting over. And but I've started many things over. Many times I've picked up and moved across the world. I've, you know, helped start other yoga studios. I've started other educational programs. I know how to start things from scratch. And I think once I realized what was needed or what I at least would like to try next, it gave me some solace. It gave me some peace of mind. And I also realized why it's so hard, because when you do start something from scratch, it is hard. And I'm also aware of that because I've been there before. So, and the other thing that I realized is that it's a risk. It's a risk. It's always going to be a risk. And life is a risk. And you know, taking my physical yoga studio and community and putting them online is not guaranteed. And I think that once I realized that, it helped me kind of understand that there's a risk involved, but there's also quite an amazing opportunity. And I'm getting the feedback that I'm getting, the donations that people have been really generous in sharing, have given me the confidence that this is a paradigm shift, and that we actually can be leaders in this shift, in helping people who maybe in the past, because we didn't have enough time, put our health and wellness and our consciousness at the very bottom of our to-do list. We now have the opportunity to put it at the top of the list and where it belongs. And I'm happy to help people make that transition. It's not easy, but I'm willing to support them and take this online. And so, you know, today I mentioned earlier, Spud, I was taking a walk, run by the river, and you know, it just dawned on me that like so many Americans right now are working out because we have the time. And I think it's fantastic. We need to be working out. And so, you know, one of the silver linings out of this is that we may come out of this much more healthier, you know, which is a wonderful thing. And so, so that's the moment. It was a big moment. I'm happy that you kind of pulled it out, because I think some of these moments are big, but they're quiet. At least mine was very quiet, and I think I could have easily just like dismissed it. So thank you for bringing it to my attention.
Alyssa, I think you're muted.
Oh yeah, I love your grace and energy, Ajax. It's just really beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
You're very honest and authentic, and you're not talking about, I mean, you're talking about fear and uncertainty, and but with great authenticity and grace. I really love that. Both of you, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for receiving it.
Absolutely.
I want to piggyback, because there was also a question in the chat, which kind of gets at this idea of right there, the urgency of right now and needing to respond to the crisis. And suddenly I need to move my whole yoga studio online, right? Or I have to change the way I deliver curriculum to students. And then there's also the thinking long-term. And the question was specifically around, how do you think your business will react when the crisis calms down? So when this storm has passed a little bit, what do you anticipate looking differently? Ajax, you talked a little bit about maybe people will want to work out more and they'll have gotten into that routine. So are you, as a entrepreneur, preparing for that? Or are you right now just kind of putting out fires that are in the immediate vicinity for it?
Yeah, no, I'm dreaming big. You know, I'm dreaming big. I mean, this has been forced on us, these changes, but it's changes that so many of us have been, you know, rallying for, voting for, activating, you know, being activists for, you know, it's, so we've gotten what we wanted. It just came in a different package. And so I'm dreaming big, and I'm thinking about Oprah Winfrey. I'm thinking about Michelle Obama. I'm thinking about the White House. I'm thinking about Baton Rouge and the governor and the mayor of New Orleans. I'm thinking about the education system. I'm thinking about incarcerated people. I'm thinking about people in hospitals. I'm thinking about that we are in a position to help so many people that have been waiting in line for very long for support. And I think because now we really truly understand our effects on each other, we truly understand how, you know, washing your hands, keeping your immune system strong, the value of your breath, that I just hope we don't forget this. And so I'm thinking that this can radically enhance our work and our bottom line, and that we have a really golden opportunity to train more teachers. You know, I'm multilingual, so I've also been thinking about, you know, maybe it's time to reach out to the Spanish population. Honestly, what this has done. It's like when you're grounded and you're like, okay, I have nothing to do. Let me clean my room. Let me do my homework, and I feel like that's what's happening. Things that have been on the back burner for me as an entrepreneur, now I'm like, okay, now it's time to go on YouTube. Okay, now it's time to create an online presence and monetize it. So yeah, I'm dreaming big, and I'm excited.
I think there was an important quote in there that you said, "We got what we wanted, it just came in a different package." I think that's a really important insight for what's going on. Tessa, how about you? What's it look like in your world, the immediate versus the long term?
Yeah, and also Ajax, I love when you said it's like normally the things we put on the back burner, right, that we get to focus on now. Like, I really love that because I feel like that is very true for me too. For us, ironically, before this had even hit, we've been doing strategic planning. So what that means is a couple of our funders had hired a strategic consultant to come in and help us make, like a 3 to 5 year plan on like what is asset going to look like in 3 years from now. So in terms of how will we react when the crisis is over, is our strategic consultant she's building this plan as if there's not really a pandemic happening right now. She's going with like as she had intended the plan to be. But I think what will happen is the plan will shift. I think the beauty in this time, we've always valued student voice. Like, we've always been like, we get feedback from students on our tools if they're working or they're not working. But we've never actually given students the opportunity to lead them. We've never really given students the opportunity to say, I actually can be a teacher of mindfulness, or I actually can be a teacher of positive psychology. And so I think what this time has done for us, and I think how it will influence us in the future, is giving every stakeholder a voice in a way we haven't typically like truly given them a voice. I feel like we've always acknowledged like your opinion matters, but not actually giving the opportunity to lead. And so this time, I think, has kind of, instead of saying like we own this content and we're going to sell it, right, we're like, we're going to give away 50 tools and we're going to have students lead it. So it's been more of a time, for me at least, of let's give the voice back to the students and let's have them have a greater say and co-plan our tools with us, rather than we tell them what to do. And I think that's how we incorporate that into our strategic plan. To be honest, I don't know. And I think more will be revealed when we start this Instagram campaign and start giving students the opportunity to lead our tools online. But I think that's also my attitude, is more will be revealed, and kind of taking it day by day and using each day to inform my next step, rather than trying to like jump 3 steps ahead. Is like we collect data and we apply it to the next day, and then we collect the data and then we apply it to the next day. And that's how we're building this Instagram campaign. And I do think that's how I'll be better at running asset when this is over.
Yeah, there's no better time to have to respond day to day, right? When so many things are radically shifting around us.
Yeah.
There were a couple questions that, and you were starting to touch on this, of how are you specifically helping students during this pandemic? What are some exercises and activities that you can share that perhaps folks on this call and who are listening in that might be able to apply in their own community? Are there little activities or tips and tricks or things you're doing in the yoga studio that you find to be really helpful that you think would be worth sharing right now?
Yeah. Ajax, would you like to go or should I go?
Sorry, I don't know why I keep getting muted, but one of the things, I mean, I'm teaching yoga, I'm teaching physical postures, beginner postures. I'm happy to share 1 or 2 with you all if you're interested. But one of the things that I'm trying to do is I'm trying to help people change their perspective. And it's not easy, but it is necessary. And so I'm posing compelling questions. One was how can I be a beneficial presence to the world right now? I know that helped me kind of get out of my head about my bills and my responsibilities and my team and my. And I realized that I do have grace. I realized that I do have love. And and that there's no better time right now than to share it, find it and share it. So asking compelling questions. We have a challenge right now that kind of similar to your question, Spud, which was, what has this quarantine taught me? And the best answer wins a private yoga class with me, where we can go over philosophy and benefits of yoga and really personalize a class for whoever wins. And the answers that people are giving are just remarkable. And so I'm trying to help people change their mind about this crisis. One more that I'll share right now is that the word emergency, the root word is emerge. So one of the questions was, how do you want to emerge from this emergency? And that was another question that helped people kind of change their perspective on what we're going through.
That's good. I like that.
Thanks.
Ajax is full of the one-liners, but she just crushed it.
Can you repeat those 3 questions?
Okay, so the first one is, how can I be a beneficial presence to the world right now?
Okay, thank you.
And the second one was, what has this quarantine taught me? And because a side note, one of the things I found out that I posted is that Shakespeare wrote King Lear during the Black Plague when he was quarantined. And that literally blew my mind. And I realized, you know what? I gotta get to work. Like Shakespeare wrote King Lear, he did not waste any time. And so that motivated me a lot personally. And then the last one is, the root word of emergency is emerge. And so how do you want to emerge from this emergency?
Very nice.
Thank you.
I see everybody taking notes on the video, including Tessa.
Yeah, I took some notes from Tessa too.
So the question's, how are you helping students right now, or what are some of your tools?
Yeah.
This was funny. I had taken a video of myself doing one of our deep breathing exercises and sent it out to a few people. And I sent it to our general counsel, and his response, which was funny, he's like, maybe don't say deep breathing because of Corona. If you breathe too deeply near people, it's like, Jackson, we don't need this right now. So some of the tools that I think are really helpful is, we always have our breath, right? That's always available to us. And I think we're more reminded of that now more than ever. So a couple of ways that I come back to my breath, and I would encourage students to as well. One of our tools is called finger breathing, which maybe wash your hands beforehand, but hold a finger and you take a deep breath and you switch, and you do it for all 10 fingers. And students, I really love this because I'm physically holding something, there's something tactile there, I'm connected to my breath, and I really love that. And I can do that while I'm on a walk, because sometimes it's easy to get lost in my breath, but just having something to hold really helps. The other practice that we remind students is mindfulness can be broken down into 3 steps, right? So beyond finger breathing, if you want to practice mindfulness, all you need to do is take a seat, pay attention to your breath, and when your mind starts to wander, simply bring it back. There's no need to control the breath. It's just simply a noticing practice. So that's one. And then the other one, similar to Ajax with the perspective shift, is we've been doing this exercise called a gratitude flip. So it's identifying one challenge or person that's difficult in your life, and asking yourself, what is this teaching me right now? How do I find what am I grateful for in this moment? So for me, if I were to answer what am I grateful for about being quarantined right now in Connecticut, it's that this is a rare opportunity for me to be with my parents. Normally I live in Colorado and I'm usually 1,700 miles away, and this is such you could be kind of frustrated that you're back at home, or you could be you know what, this is a rare chance for me to connect with my family again. So to recap that, finger breathing, hold a finger, take a deep breath, use it whenever you need it. Just the simple practice of mindfulness is simply finding a seat, paying attention to your breath, and then noticing when your mind starts to wander and bringing it back. And lastly is like the gratitude flip of, what is this teaching me right now? And then the final thing I'll say that's been really important for me to like share with students is creating routines in the morning. Like it's very easy for me to like hop on my phone and kind of dive into like the deep, like negative news. And I found that really like would like affect how I feel for the remainder of the day. So really I wake up and like, how do I want to feel this morning? What am I going to do that's going to help me create that feeling? Yoga like is one of those things for me. Reading a book that is just like fictitious that I just enjoy is another way I can like create a sense of feeling joy and good. So those are some of the tips I'd recommend to students.
Awesome. So I'm going to open it up to others on the call. Are there things that you're curious about, a question that you want to pose and piggyback off part of the conversation we've been on? Just go ahead and unmute yourself and we'll let someone jump in here, throw another question in. I've also got a whole book full of them. So if you want, I can keep going. Cool. So I'll throw one in, but feel free to interject at any point.
I have a question.
Oh, you got one? Cool.
Yeah. Wait, I just forgot it. Okay, as far as as far as like preparing for something similar to happen, or if you were prepared for something like this to happen, any thoughts on, going forward, being prepared? Like one of the things I've learned is the importance of having a savings, and, how that can come in for these times. Anything else that you all can add?
Yeah, I mean, the savings is definitely helpful and definitely something I've been thinking about.
Just managing risk as an entrepreneur, like this is something that doesn't really happen. Like it's so random, but I feel like we should think about it.
Well, I think that number one, I'm very grateful that I've been taking such good care of myself, right? And so that the minute I veer off, whether it's with a negative thought or emotion, it doesn't last very long because I've been on top of my health and wellness. So, this idea of prevention is something that we need to continue to spearhead because it's imperative, and you lose less time and money when you take preventative habits. And so I think that my community that we built from scratch, I've been loving on them and encouraging them and being connected to them since day one. And because of that, they are sticking with me. Even though it's hard for them, I'm sure. But there's very, very handful of people who have asked for a pause in their membership or money back. It doesn't quite answer your question, but I think what I'm trying to promote here is prevention, taking preventative steps and habits, and being really good to people, just because. And knowing that on a rainy day, that dedication you give to another human being, that will come back to support you.
Tessa, you have other things to add in?
Yeah, no, I think Ajax said that beautifully. So Ruben, your question is essentially like, how would you prepare for something like this if it were to happen again, or?
Yeah, just like managing risk in situations like this. Like every entrepreneur has to manage risk. And even though this is an unlikely event, I feel like we can take lessons from it in terms of, how now that it happened to us, like how can we, if it were to happen again, like we would be smarter and, take from our experiences.
Yeah, I think one of the things I'm noticing, similar to like how Ajax, you talked about your community of supporters, I think for me, like in terms of going forward, like what I'll take from this is like asking for help sooner. Like if I need help, like talking to our fund, like we have a lot of foundations that support us. And so being really transparent with them of, you know, this is what we need and this is how we need to prepare. Like one of the things I've learned is that you should have like a reserve in your general operating budget. Like you don't need, like that can be part of your general ops. So I think going forward, like that's how I'll like change, is like in asking for grants in the future is planning better for that. But what's been awesome is that our community has like stepped up to support us in this time. I don't know if that answered your question, but I think like what I'm taking forward going away from this is like being transparent with our funders about when we are having more risk and what we need from them to support us. And so like just continuously being transparent with the people that are in our community.
I think that, you know, this is history. Like this is a historic moment in time, you know, and like we will be written about, this period of time will be written about in history, the 2020 pandemic. And I think like 9/11 and other tragedies, other tough moments that our world and our country has faced, we will probably always fold in a tax or a law or some kind of protective and preventative measure for this. It's a good question, Ruben, and I think it's a question that we will have to continuously ask ourselves and find some good answers for. But this is a game changer, you know, and so it is going to definitely impact us in the future. And I just hope that we share ideas, resources, wisdom, so that we have a plan and have a strategy and to be able to get through a challenge like this.
Thank you.
Thanks for the question, Ruben. Anyone else out there that has a question you want to pose to Tessa and Ajax? Here, we've got a couple minutes before the top of the hour, and so probably got time for one or two more questions.
I got a question for both of you guys. I know that you guys are in different locations, and that means that you guys have different, I guess, leadership that is in your area. And I want to know what have you learned from the leadership in your area, so that you individually can be better leaders for the people that you take care of?
Yeah, our leader, the leader that's most on the front line would be the mayor of New Orleans, Mayor Latoya Cantrell, first Black female mayor, first female mayor of New Orleans. Took 300 years for that to happen. So she's pretty well known around the world. She made history, and you know, I personally voted for her. And I've seen her struggle as a leader. It's not easy, you know, so I try not to judge her too much. But what I am seeing from her and learning from her to do, that I try my best to do, is to work hard, you know, is to work hard for the people that you're serving, that you're representing. Is to listen to them and to have an open dialogue, to share your thought process of why it is you're doing X, Y, and Z. People really benefit from that. They really appreciate that. And you know, when you make a bold decision, to be able to unpack it for people. And I think that she's been criticized, not so much for this particular issue, but we've had a lot of issues this year. In her term, she's faced a lot of problems. And, you know, she wasn't always on the ground working. She was, you know, visiting Ghana, visiting Washington, D.C., you know, for somewhat business purposes, but meanwhile, people here in New Orleans didn't always understand why she was doing that. And so I think being a leader, the leader goes first. You know, the leader does all the work that nobody else wants to do. And as a leader, I understand that. And so those are some of the issues I have with her personally, and some of the things that I believe in that I have to remind myself, like, make sure that you put your nose to the grind, and that you lead your community out of this hole, because I need them. And so that's some of the leadership lessons that I've been learning.
So I'm going to answer your question, Jonathan, from like a slightly different angle. So what I've been really following, I'm here in Connecticut, but most of Asset's work is in Colorado. So I've been following how are the leaders in the philanthropy world in Colorado like responding to this pandemic. And one of the things that I've seen is like, one, like people from like across differences have like come together to push what needs to get done to support nonprofits, which is awesome. And I think the other thing I've seen is that like listening to the stakeholders, like that's something that I will always like take forward, of like listening, like what do you need right now? So instead of like putting assumptions on others of like, this is what I think needs to be done on the ground, of like actually asking the people on the ground, what do you need? And so I think that's how I'll take leadership going forward.
Thank you guys. I appreciate it.
That's a good question, Jonathan.
Yeah, it's meaningful, and it's important to me because I've been looking and seeing that there's a lot of differences of opinions across different regions for the perception of leadership. And you know, we are all leaders of different forms in our own lives in different ways. And I think something to learn, at least if anything, from this pandemic is to understand how we can be there for the people that we care about and who care about us. And that means being better leaders in our own lives. So thank you guys for your input.
So I'm going to be respectful too of folks' time. So I want to leave us with one final question, piggybacking off something Tessa said earlier, that you've learned to ask for help sooner. And so what is one thing that we can collectively do to help each of you with the work you're doing, to get a message out, to get a tool, to get something out in the world? How can we be of service to you all in each of the work that you're doing? So we'll end on that final question.
You're asking the work for Magnolia?
Yeah, the work that you're specifically doing. Is there one thing that we can do to support you and help out in some way?
I think, advocate for health and wellness, and on a daily, it's a daily endeavor. And, it's the bottom line. I mean, your body has the final say. And so, like I've been sharing, just like what was kind of towards the bottom of most people's lists, really bringing it up to the front. And so advocating for health and wellness in the most, natural way possible. And to me, that's yoga and meditation. And supporting small business, because we want to be able to be there when this is over. And so advocating for health and wellness and supporting small business, especially minority businesses, women-led businesses, African-American, Asian, Latino businesses, it's harder for us. And so, yeah, just, not forgetting the people who are doing this work, daily. And we want to be here for you when this is over.
Awesome. Tessa, how about yourself?
Those are awesome, Ajax. So one way the Sullivan community could support Asset is we're actually looking right now for college-age students who would like to lead record themselves leading one of our tools on our Instagram. We'll give you like the script and how to do the tool. And then if you can like record yourself. So I'll put my email in the chat. If anyone is interested in being a student leader of like mindfulness or positive psychology, we want to represent like a diverse group of students. And so yes, so email me. I'll put it in the chat if you're interested. We're going to pay for each video like $10. So you do get paid for every video you make, which is awesome, because we want to support our students during this time. And yeah, that's like a really concrete way. But just to reiterate, I think what Ajax said is like, take care of yourself and the people around you. I think what we all need beyond our organizations is just a supportive community, and to put our health first. So thank you for having me, Spud, and thank you, Ajax.
Yeah, thank you both for joining today. Super grateful that you were able to take some time out of your schedule. If you want any follow-up contact, Ajax and Tessa, their details will be posted along with these videos. Feel free to follow up with them. The details are also on the Sullivan website, so if you need to get in touch with anyone, always feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to connect the dots across the network. So thanks so much, everybody, for joining. And we'll be at this again next week. We've got a couple more calls every Wednesday and Friday. So feel free to look on the Facebook page and the website for details on who will be joining us next week. So thanks for joining, folks, and thanks for your time.
Bye.
Bye.
Take care. Be well.
Bye.
Bye.